In the name of the prophet, figs. Cry of a Turkish fig peddler. I presume everybody has heard of me. My name is Signora Psyche Zenobia. This I know to be a fact. Nobody but my enemies ever calls me Suki Snobs. I have been assured that Suki is but a vulgar corruption of Psyche, which is good Greek and means the soul. That's me. I'm all soul, and sometimes a butterfly, which latter meaning undoubtedly alludes to my appearance in my new crimson satin dress with the sky blue Arabian mantelet, and the trimmings of green agrafas, and the 7 flounces of orange-colored auriculas. As for snobs, any person who should look at me would be instantly aware that my name wasn't Snobs. Miss Tabitha Turnip propagated that report through sheer envy. Tabitha Turnip indeed. Oh, the little wretch. But what can we expect from a turnip? Wonder if she remembers the old adage about blood out of a turnip, etc. Mem, put her in mind of it the first opportunity. Mem again, pull her nose. Where was I? I have been assured that Snobs is a mere corruption of Zenobia, and that Zenobia was a queen. So am I. Dr. Moneypenny always calls me the Queen of Hearts. And that Zenobia as well as Psyche is good Greek, and that my father was a Greek, and that consequently I have a right to our patronymic, which is Zenobia, and not by any means Snobs. Nobody but Tabitha Turnip calls me Suki Snobs. I am the Signora Psyche Zenobia. As I said before, everybody has heard of me. I am that very Signora Psyche Zenobia, so justly celebrated as corresponding secretary to the Philadelphia Regular Exchange Tea Total Young Belles Letters Universal Experimental Bibliographical Association to Civilize Humanity. Dr. Moneypenny made the title for us and says he chose it because it sounded big, like an empty rum puncheon. A vulgar man that sometimes, but he's deep. We all sign the initials of the society after our names in the fashion of the RSA, Royal Society of Arts, the SDUK, Society for the Diffusion of Useful Knowledge, etc., etc. Dr. Moneypenny says that S stands for stale, and that DUK spells duck, but it don't. And that SDUK stands for stale duck, and not for Lord Brougham's Society. But then Dr. Moneypenny is such a queer man that I am never sure when he is telling me the truth. At any rate, we always add to our names the initials PRETTY BLUE That is to say, Philadelphia Regular Exchange Tea Total Young Belles Letters Universal Experimental Bibliographical Association to Civilize Humanity. 1 letter for each word, which is a decided improvement upon Lord Brougham. Dr. Moneypenny will have it that our initials give our true character, but for my life I can't see what he means. Notwithstanding the good offices of the doctor and the strenuous exertions of the association to get itself into notice, it met with no very great success until I joined it. The truth is, the members indulged in too flippant a tone of discussion. The papers read every Saturday evening were characterized less by depth than buffoonery. They were all whipped syllabub. There was no investigation of first causes, first principles. There was no investigation of anything at all. There was no attention paid to that great point, the fitness of things. In short, there was no fine writing like this. It was all low, very. No profundity, no reading, no metaphysics, nothing which the learned call spirituality, and which the unlearned choose to stigmatize as cant. Dr. M says I ought to spell cant with a capital K, but I know better. When I joined the society, it was my endeavor to introduce a better style of thinking and writing, and all the world knows how well I have succeeded. We get up as good papers now in the PRETTY BLUEBATCH as any to be found even in Blackwood. I say Blackwood because I have been assured that the finest writing upon every subject is to be discovered in the pages of that justly celebrated magazine. We now take it for our model upon all themes, and are getting into rapid notice accordingly. And, after all, it's not so very difficult a matter to compose an article of the genuine Blackwood stamp, if one only goes properly about it. Of course, I don't speak of the political articles. Everybody knows how they are managed, since Dr. Moneypenny explained it. Mr. Blackwood has a pair of tailor's shears, and 3 apprentices who stand by him for orders. One hands him the Times, another the Examiner, and a third a Gully's New Compendium of Slangwang. Mr. B merely cuts out and intersperses. It is soon done, nothing but Examiner, Slangwang, and Times, then Times, Slangwang, and Examiner, and then Times, Examiner, and Slangwang. But the chief merit of the magazine lies in its miscellaneous articles, and the best of these come under the head of what Dr. Moneypenny calls the bizarreries, whatever that may mean, and what everybody else calls the intensities. This is a species of writing which I have long known how to appreciate, although it is only since my late visit to Mr. Blackwood, deputed by the Society, that I have been made aware of the exact method of composition. This method is very simple, but not so much as the politics. Upon my calling at Mr. B.'s, and making known to him the wishes of the Society, he received me with great civility, took me into his study, and gave me a clear explanation of the whole process. "My dear madam," said he, evidently struck with my majestic appearance, for I had on the crimson satin with the green agrafas and orange-colored auriculas. "My dear madam," said he, "sit down. The matter stands thus. In the first place, your writer of intensities must have very black ink and a very big pen, with a very blunt nib. And mark me, Miss Psyche Zenobia," he continued after a pause, with the most expressive energy and solemnity of manner, "mark me, that pen must never be mended. Herein, madam, lies the secret, the soul of intensity. I assume upon myself to say that no individual of however great genius ever wrote with a good pen. Understand me, a good article. You may take it for granted that when manuscript can be read, it is never worth reading. This is a leading principle in our faith, to which, if you cannot readily assent, our conference is at an end." He paused, but of course, as I had no wish to put an end to the conference, I assented to a proposition so very obvious, and one, too, of whose truth I had all along been sufficiently aware. He seemed pleased, and went on with his instructions. "It may appear invidious in me, Miss Psyche Zenobia, to refer you to an article, or set of articles, in the way of model or study. Yet perhaps I may as well call your attention to a few cases. Let me see. There was The Dead Alive, a capital thing, the record of a gentleman's sensations when entombed before the breath was out of his body, full of taste, terror, sentiment, metaphysics, and erudition. You would have sworn that the writer had been born and brought up in a coffin. Then we had The Confessions of an Opium Eater. Fine, very fine. Glorious imagination, deep philosophy, acute speculation. Plenty of fire and fury, and a good thing, and a good spicing of the decidedly unintelligible. That was a nice bit of flummery, and went down the throats of the people delightfully. They would have it that Coleridge wrote the paper, but not so. It was composed by my pet baboon, Juniper, over a rummer of Hollands and water, hot without sugar. This I could scarcely have believed had it been anybody but Mr. Blackwood who assured me of it. Then there was The Involuntary Experimentalist, all about a gentleman who got baked in an oven and came out alive and well, although certainly done to a turn. And then there was The Diary of a Late Physician, where the merit lay in good rant and indifferent Greek, both of them taking things with the public. And then there was The Man in the Bell, a paper by the by Miss Zenobia, which I cannot sufficiently recommend to your attention. It is the history of a young person who goes to sleep under the clapper of a church bell, and is awakened by its tolling for a funeral. Sound drives him mad, and accordingly, pulling out his tablets, he gives a record of his sensations. Sensations are the great things after all. Should you ever be drowned or hung, be sure to make note of your sensations. They will be worth to you 10 guineas a sheet. If you wish to write forcibly, Miss Zenobia, pay minute attention to the sensations. That I certainly will, Mr. Blackwood, said I. Good, he replied. I see you are a pupil after my own heart. But I must put to you au fait to the details necessary in composing what may be denominated a genuine Blackwood article of the sensation stamp, the kind which you will understand me to say I consider the best for all purposes. The first thing requisite is to get yourself into such a scrape as no one ever got into before. The oven, for instance. That was a good hit. But if you have no oven or big bell at hand, and if you cannot conveniently tumble out of a balloon, or be swallowed up in an earthquake, or get stuck fast in a chimney, you will have to be contented with simply imagining some similar misadventure. I should prefer, however, that you have the actual fact to bear you out. Nothing so well assists the fancy as an experimental knowledge of the matter in hand. Truth is strange, you know, stranger than fiction, besides being more to the purpose. Here I assured him I had an excellent pair of garters, and would go and hang myself forthwith. Good, he replied. Do so, although hanging is somewhat hackneyed. Perhaps you might do better take a dose of Brandreth's pills, and then give us your sensations. However, my instructions will apply equally well to any variety of misadventure, and in your way home you may easily get knocked on the head, or run over by an omnibus, or bitten by a mad dog, or drowned in a gutter. But to proceed. Having determined upon your subject, you must next consider the tone or manner of your narration. There is the tone didactic, the tone enthusiastic, the tone natural, all commonplace enough, but then there is the tone laconic or curt, which has lately come much into use. It consists in short sentences, somehow thus: can't be too brief, can't be too snappish, always a full stop, and never a paragraph. Then there is the tone elevated, diffusive, and interjectional. Some of our best novelists patronize this tone. The words must be all in a whirl, like a humming top, and make a noise very similar, which answers remarkably well instead of meaning. This is the best of all possible styles where the writer is in too great a hurry to think. The tone metaphysical is also a good one. If you know any big words, this is your chance for them. Talk of the Ionic, the Eleatic schools, and talk of the Ionic and Eleatic schools of Archytas, Gorgias, and Alcmaeon. Say something about objectivity and subjectivity. Be sure to abuse a man named Locke. Turn up your nose at things in general, and when you let slip anything a little too absurd, you need not be at the trouble of scratching it out, but just add a footnote and say that you are indebted for the above profound observation to the Kritik der reinem Vernunft, or to the Metaphysische Anfangsgrund der Naturwissenschaft. This will look erudite and frank. There are various other tones of equal celebrity, but I shall mention only two more: the tone transcendental and the tone heterogeneous. In the former, the merit consists in seeing into the nature of affairs a very great deal farther than anybody else. This second sight is very efficient when properly managed. A little reading of the dial will carry you a great way. Eschew, in this case, big words. Get them as small as possible and write them upside down. Look over Channing's poems and quote what he says about a fat little man with a delusive show of can. Put in something about the supernal oneness. Don't say a syllable about the infernal two-ness. Above all, study innuendo. Hint everything, assert nothing. If you feel inclined to say bread and butter, do not by any means say it outright. You may say anything and everything approaching to bread and butter. You may hint at buckwheat cake, or you may even go so far as to insinuate oatmeal porridge. But if bread and butter be your real meaning, be cautious, my dear Miss Psyche, not on any account to say bread and butter. I assured him that I should never say it again as long as I lived. He kissed me and continued. As for the tone heterogeneous, It is merely a judicious mixture, in equal proportions, of all the other tones in the world, and is consequently made up of everything deep, great, odd, piquant, pertinent, and pretty. Let us suppose now you have determined upon your incidents and tone. The most important portion, in fact, the soul of the whole business, is yet to be attended to. I allude to the filling up. It is not to be supposed that a lady or gentleman either has been leading the life of a bookworm. And yet, above all things, it is necessary that your article have an air of erudition, or at least afford evidence of extensive general reading. Now, I'll put you in the way of accomplishing this point. See here, pulling down some 3 or 4 ordinary-looking volumes and opening them at random. By casting your eye down almost any page of any book in the world, you will be able to perceive at once a host of little scraps of either learning or bel espiritism, which are the very thing for the splicing of a Blackwood article. You might as well note down a few while I read them to you. I shall make 2 divisions. First, piquant facts for the manufacture of similes, and second, piquant expressions to be introduced as occasion may require. Write now. And I wrote as he dictated.